who cares about albums anyway, right? And when I say that, I'm speaking from a review standpoint. So shout out to the homie Justin Hunt, who was just with us last week. He recently discussed the lack of importance on album reviews in 2025. Now, this conversation included Torre and Anthony Fantano. I hope I said his name right.
And William Ketchum.
William Ketchum, yep. And they dove into why this concept is or is not necessary in today's music climate. So I believe we have a clip. We can watch that and kind of dive in and discuss afterwards.
But I mean, you know, like, but there are definitely some artists who literally just look at the album as like a collection of songs, right? And I think that, but I do think that there are specific artists who are going to use an album as a statement and as sort of like a representation of where they're at. Although
it depends on what they set their audience up for. I think Drake has been in that mode for a decade now. I think he's more or less been in that mode when it comes to approaching albums since More Life. Because I mean, if we remember, that was a playlist.
Yep. Yeah.
that wasn't an album. And I think he's mostly been kind of like thinking of his albums format wise in that same way since then, because he came out with that fucking thing and it was well received. His fans liked it. You know, because I don't think Drake fans are sort of like expecting the kind of storytelling and world building that maybe some fans of other artists who tend to indulge in that sort of thing do.
These guys had a great conversation about, you know, just the types of albums, the collection of songs versus what we would say an album that's more conceptual, if you will. And if that's even looked at or reviews even looked at, do people even care about that in the space now? So I had a couple questions that I put in here, but I want you guys to react first to what you saw, because I feel like sometimes there are artists who do the collection of songs projects versus the ones that do the more creative projects. I don't feel like they're held in the same regard as to how we look at them, if that makes sense, because we know some people are just going to throw records together.
I think it depends.
Okay, go ahead, Lon. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it depends on, like, from a consumer standpoint, we are, and I feel like we've talked about this a lot, but from a consumer standpoint, we like short little hits, man. We like, give me a song, let me scroll to the next thing. Give me a song, let me scroll to the next thing. Let me see what's going on my social feed, right? A lot of us here enjoy albums, you know what I mean? But in general, the way that most people consume media nowadays is just short, you know? And so I think that he mentioned, Fantano mentioned like Drake's approach, you know, like it was like a playlist, if you will. And that works right now because you can just give people songs. So from their perspective, where they're talking about like an album review and doesn't even matter anymore, to some of us it does,
right? You
know, in general, but generally speaking, albums don't have as much of an impact on the general culture of onlineness and how we consume everything as it used to, because we don't have the time to sit with stuff in the same type of way, or we don't feel like we do because we don't have any attention. So
I think, well, first and foremost, I think it's funny how you can't, like, I might this word up, but the juxtaposition that you put people in where you can't say Drake and Kendrick, because it looked like he wanted to say like Drake. Drake, the way Drake puts his albums out as opposed to Kendrick,
he
couldn't because nobody really wants to say it just because of the beef, you know what I mean? So I think that's
plus
funny.
Fantano's been getting a lot of shit recently because
they saying that's all he does is talk about the beef. That's how he got popping.
Well, there's a bunch of stuff.
Yeah. All right, I get it, but I think it's been this way since iTunes led you to buy like each song as opposed to buying full albums. You know what I mean? Once you didn't have to digest the whole project at one time like we had, it's been this way. You know what I mean? So this is nothing new. I don't think this is a new concept. It's just that's the way the game is now.
So let me ask this, and I'll throw this out before I come to Terry. We still got Jay too, but from the standpoint of the actual review, right? Mm-hmm. At this point, is it even necessary based off what you said and what Lone said about how the attention span, everything's short, it's fast, it's quick, it's on to the next one. Is it even necessary?
Yes, it's just a different format. And Justin does it, you guys do it. It's just the reaction video now. As opposed to...
But it's not an album. Well, I mean, we did a couple.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Because it's for certain artists, they get the whole album. You know what I mean? But the reaction video is now the new album review.
Yeah, I think in a way, I think there's always space for reviews and stuff like this, that's still going to exist. I just don't think it's popular. It's not the mainstream anymore. It's not how most people consume their media in general.
So would it be fair to say that it's still, it's still something that can be used as a tool, but it's not as popular, or the impact is not as what it used to be?
I mean,
is that fair to say?
Think about back when Terry and I were blogging, right?
Right.
We would listen to an album and we would share an album, and then you would come and you would check out the album and listen to it, or it would be a single or whatever.
Yeah.
Where does that exist anymore? To where, like, I don't know, man. It just
YouTube.
Exactly. That's my point, though. Like.
There's no print media anymore.
That's what I was going to say.
That's what I was getting to.
Go ahead, Terry.
We've evolved from things being printed, and I don't have to check and see if I should purchase this item because I'm paying for a streaming service now. So if I have the streaming service, I can just listen to it real quick and decide if I like it or not. Versus picking up the source. Okay, this album got 3.5. I don't know if I think they rated that right. I'm gonna listen for myself. This album got 2. Okay, I might leave that one alone. It got 2. This one got 5. I gotta listen to that. You know what I'm saying? Whereas now, if I got a streaming service, I can listen and consume everything that I want to consume and form my own opinion. Now, in the same token, people listen to music by influence.
Yeah.
Just like as DJs, we can drop a song that we feel like is hard. The consensus doesn't pick it up until somebody else tells them it's hard. And we've been playing it for months, though. So it's like you have certain people that look for somebody to give them the push to go ahead and say it's okay. You got other individuals that are like, I feel like I'm a tastemaker and I know what's right anyway, so I'm going to listen to what he's playing. I mean, you get certain people that'll walk up to you at the end of the night and point out an obscure song that you played.
Yeah.
Because they want to let you know that I'm on that radar. I know what you on. You know what I'm saying? So nowadays, it kind of it's evolved to the point where
influencers.
Yeah, there you go. It's evolved to a point where you have an artist like Drake that can make an album where it's just songs, and that appeals the masses.
Yeah.
First, that's the whole difference between the Kendrick and Drake situation, because Kendrick will put together an album. Even GNX is an album. You know what I'm saying? It's not a playlist.
Yeah.
His album, you have to listen to albums differently than you listen to an album that just has singles on it. Now, granted, go ahead.
I'm sorry. It's how he pieces his albums together. You know what I mean? Because he has those little segments where he has like the lady playing the guitar on GNX. In all of his albums, he gives you something to make the transition from each track seamless.
Right.
As opposed to this song's over, go to the next song.
And the issue with that is people's attention span. They don't want to listen to a whole thing. They feel like they don't want to learn anything.
That's not true, man.
And not even necessarily learn anything. They don't want to have to think that maybe this song down here tied into this song and this is a story and now I'm paying attention too much.
It's only how you put the album together, because we didn't say that when we heard GNX. You know what I mean? We didn't say that when Cole put out his projects. You know what I mean? But he did the same thing.
I do agree with Terry, and I believe I'm going to make sure I quote him right. I feel like the consensus does not want to do what he said. Across the board.
I think
it's still a flow, and I'm just using Kendrick as an example because he brought up Drake in the playlist album. That's the only reason I'm using Kendrick.
But again, it's like he said, it's how you condition your listeners to digest your projects.
And it's also knowing the structure of putting an album together.
Exactly.
Well.
You know what I mean? And the only reason I feel that way about Drake projects is because Drake has people that give him these records. So he's not creating some of these records, you know what I mean?
Because he's aiming for something different.
Yeah, he's just aiming for a hit, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna put all of these songs on here, and the people are gonna tell me which ones they like, as opposed of this is where I'm at in my life right now, and I want to give you my piece of art right now. So that's how he conditioned his listeners to grab or to listen to digest his projects. You know what I mean?
So how do we explain somebody like a Playboy Cardi who just dropped an album?
Playboy Cardi. I didn't listen to it just because it's not for me. I'm not gonna be honest with you.
Love that honesty.
My son listened to it, and my son told me I get my tastemakers. I know that's his type of music that he listens to. So I called my son and I asked him what he thought about the project. My son told me he was disappointed in it. So after he told me that, I trusted his opinion and I didn't have to go listen to it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, tell me which records it is that you like. So I think this is the Elliott Wilson argument all over again. You know what I mean? Because how he was upset with the bloggers and all this, that, and the third, because he wasn't getting the interviews that he expected. You know what I mean? But people not really into journalists no more. They into personalities. That's why, like, you go listen to Joe Budden talk about a project, and whether he says it's good or not determines on how many people really listen to it anymore. Like, Joe Budden is the new academics. These are the new Elliott Wilsons.
It's it's literally the influencer. The power of an influencer has surpassed the journalist. That's the era that we're in now.
It's almost like the journalist is like the bourgeois, like this
teacup.
Y'all out here reading and writing. You know, like, just tell us if we should like it or not.
Yeah, it's like it's the sports writer that is stuck in the 60s and the 70s on his typewriter. He's not he or she's not evolving. It's the same thing. It's not to say that the journalists are not good at what they do. They've been great writers.
Yeah, people just want something different.
Time is evolving. People want things that are different.
For this conversation, when based upon the original conversation with Fantano and Justin and Torre and them, they were talking about album reviews and is the album review relevant anymore?
Right.
But one of the biggest album reviewers, period, across the board is Fantano, and he doesn't do journalism in that type of manner. He is somebody who specifically does video album reviews, and they're very in depth, right? So he's in that space, but I think it's more so about the way that the album review is approached, as opposed like covering an entire body of work and potentially giving it a rating and things of that matter, as opposed to let us, like what we do, we sit and we listen to songs and we tell you if we like it or not. It's not an in-depth analysis of, well, I mean, sometimes a little bit, but it's more of a reaction as opposed to sitting with a piece of work. And I think that's kind of the conversation. The argument is like, is that important anymore?
And that goes
How does the artist feel about that, though, at the end of the day? Because, I mean, we can talk about Kendrick and Drake, but there's other artists that put out albums as well. They don't necessarily tell a story, but the way the album flows is a feeling, it's a vibe, so to speak. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
and I think the kind of vibe situation has taken over people paying attention to a whole album just being, you know what I'm saying, the thing that they're looking for.
Jump in there, Jay.
Well, you know, we're all old enough to remember when we would get that Source magazine, and before we went to anything, we'd go to the back and see what someone's album was rated. You know, and the thing is, an album rating at that time was a difference between, like, your album may not come out if you get 3 mics. You know, they might have to push back and make some changes. You know, there are people willing to fight over, you know, what a journalist would say and how your particular piece of art is rated. You know,
that's true.
You know, people don't care. I mean, not that they don't care what someone says about their record, but, you know, if your intention is just to have a song that goes off in the club, and, you know, it depends on people's approach to art. You know, like, I just remember, you know, when Ice Spice, remember her?
I see what you did there.
She put out her last album, and when I listened to it, I wasn't listening to it thinking, okay, I'm going to get this magnum opus that tells this incredible story. This is going to be a collection of songs, and, you know, and like I said, I still listen for what may work in the club, just to freshen up what gets played. And I heard an album full on swings and misses. And now when I listen to you know, the Mr. Morale, I'm not checking really, or at least, you know, that was not an album to where he's thinking, okay, this is going to go on the radio. This is for the strip club. This is for, you know, when people put on a linen. Like, that was a personal album where he was trying to tell a story, you know, and so it's a different approach to art. And whether or not you review it as such, or you just review every album as you would, if you think everybody's intention is the same, I think that's where things get lost in translation, because there are things that are reviewed poorly, but if they got 3 bangers out of 15 songs,
that's all that matters.
That's really, it's messed up. That's all that matters. And I think about, and I hate to keep bringing up Drake and Kendrick, but like when I listen to a Drake album, I could put it on random. Back when people had CD players and there was CDs on random.
You still do shuffle.
Shuffle.
You can do
Okay.
shuffle.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
Shuffle.
I got to update the lingo. But, and I'm like, okay, it really doesn't matter in which order these songs are played.
Yeah.
But
it still works.
I can't play, To Pimp a Butterfly is not an album that you want to listen to out of order if you're going to listen to the entire body of work. But, I just think that when we talk about album reviews, do they matter as much as they used to? No, because it really is a popularity contest, and if it's about it, all you need is one. And a lot of these people aren't even putting out full bodies of work, because if you can just put out a 2 or 3 pack here or there, and one of those can set it off for the summer, why am I going to, perfect example. Cardi B has not put out an album in 7-8 years now. She put out her debut and she's just been tossing out singles. Her two of her biggest records weren't even on an album.
Well, her win is her personality works.
Yeah, and she's found a way. She was still at the Grammys this year without putting out a full body of work in almost a decade. She's found a way to maintain, I guess, what you would call relevance or popularity in the marketplace with one album and some mixtapes and a couple singles here and there. But that's why I think, you could, like I said, people used to want to fight the journalists over a bad review. Now I don't think it's so much, because I don't care. I got the song of the summer. I don't care if you hate the other 9 songs on the album.
Jump in, B.
I think that the reason the album review is not what it was is the journalist's fault.
Oh.
Because once the public realized that, look, some of these reviews could be bought, journalistic integrity actually kind of went shy. Once you saw Benzino got 5 mics,
it was 4.5, but still.
I don't know what that album sounds like.
No,
nor do I.
You know what I mean? And then there's been several other artists where you hear the people talking about the project, and you go listen to it, and you like, yeah, I don't. Maybe I didn't hear what you heard, so maybe this review was purchased.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So people's journalistic, and that goes for bloggers.
Yeah, it goes for influencers.
Yeah, all of us.
It's still there now.
And there's still a bias there. You look, anybody, you can Google it. If you read the Source's review of Doggy Style, it is the most hating ass, I think 4.5 mic review you will ever hear from. It's like, this album is great, but it's too much like the crime. It's like, you are praising this record, but it's still a level of hate. And it was like, because the West Coast was just whooping so much ass at that point.
Man, oh man.
It was an East Coast publication.
Yeah. And so it was like, we can't give this 5 mics. Not his first album, 5 mics. No, a kid from the West Coast? Hell no.
So back to your point that you just made recently, though, Jay, about what we are all talking about in the sense of why the album review isn't relevant as much anymore. I think it's also, because people aren't checking for it. It's because back then that's how you checked for music.
Exactly.
That's not how you check for music now.
Yeah.
And I think that's a major piece of it. I think album reviews have just become niche at this point. So, if the landscape was kind of the same, even if people were still giving out ratings and we didn't agree with them, if that was the only way, we would still be checking them.
Man,
but the thing, because that was the way that we had to check them, because this stuff still exists right now.
I'm about to say, you don't know how
playlisting.
Y'all don't know how big like the scene is for, like, yeah, of course y'all do, like reaction videos.
Yeah.
That's the new album review, man. Like, because there'll be a song that come out, and I go pull up the name of the song on YouTube, and I'm seeing reaction videos 30 minutes after the song dropped.
True.
You know what I mean? So, and then, like, sometimes I catch the way the algorithm goes, it gives me the actual reaction video before I actually get to the song.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
They're on it.
I think that is like the new album review, man, because there are certain songs that I've heard through album reviews because I couldn't find the link quick enough or something. So I actually had to go listen to somebody's opinion on the record before I actually heard the record.
Yeah, I can
It's
give
all
that
good
some
points.
P's. The thing about it is too, people aren't solely focused on artists and what they do as an artist, so to speak. It's more so what works here and what works there, and is this going to make my Friday and Saturday lit, so to speak, by listening to whatever came out. People don't consume albums the same way, and that's the whole reason why
That switched to Friday.
Yeah, it just doesn't work the same way. You know what I'm saying? So an album review, to your point, has switched over to a video react, and that video react leads to me seeing this video, and then maybe, okay, that song was cool. I'm gonna go down and check out some other stuff. People that consume things that way. I still personally, having a streaming service, if there's an album or an artist that came out, I'm going to hit play on it, regardless. I don't have to see anything, and I'm going to form my own opinion based off of that.
Terry, but you are literally a tastemaker.
I was going to lead to that too. 'Cause like, I mean, even some albums come out, me and you might text back and forth. Hey, did you check that out? What'd you think? You know what I'm saying? It's like, I don't know. I listen to things differently because I feel like I have to, and I also enjoy music, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? But I think as a consumer, they're not focused on if this artist is dropping 12 dope songs. If they give me 2 or 3 that I can add to my weekend playlist, then I'm cool.
Unless you're a super fan of that artist.
There we
Exactly.
You know?
Because I don't think the artist is as special as it was when we were growing up. So now you have access to everything. Instagram, we see photos.
Oh, I was going to go there.
We see all that. So these were superstars. I should look at these guys and be like, man, Raekwon and Ghostface, they fresh. They got the polo sport joint. I'm like, oh, this is crazy. Now it's like I can see everything on Instagram. They'll drop albums soon, and I'm going to listen to it. Y'all follow me?
Yeah, there's that.
For sure.
And then there's also everybody think they can do it now.
Because of access.
Yeah, that's the second part.
I think to piggyback off of that, I think it also it turns into this bigger conversation about how we as society don't really value art.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, you said that. I remember that was a hell of an episode y'all did a while back where y'all was talking about just the way the value of art has gone down to this point, man. It's really
this goes into, because Lona's consistently, we've talked about this, but this conversation that they're having goes right into what we've talked about with that. It literally goes right into it. So I don't know, man. I don't foresee this being something that changes soon, because if anything, it's going to go the other way faster.
Bro, we were literally messing around with AI art before we came on the show.
Yes.
True.
Which
I got some good stuff off of it.
Yeah, but at the same time, like this is not art. We talked about Timbaland saying that real music has no soul last week. You know, this is where we're at. It's gonna take, you know, the consistent look. Art is always going to exist.
Sure.
We're going to have these ebbs and flows, if you will, but it's going to take, in my opinion, a bunch of people to kind of put their foot down and say, no, this is still music over here. This is still art that I like over here. We have to be able to distinguish the difference between the two. AI is great as a tool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And to mess around with. You know, until you get into the ethics of, you know, everybody doing it and all that stuff. But anyways.
I think you'll be able to differentiate the two, though.
Oh, how
eventually.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. It's like, I don't think we can now. I think in the future it's going to be crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Going the other direction.
Yes.
Yeah.
How the mighty have
baby.
fallen, man. That's how I feel. Like after hearing that discussion from Timbaland, that comment from Timbaland, man, like, bro.
Your Timberland.
Yeah, for you to give what you've given to the game. You know what I mean? Because at that time it was so original. You know what I mean? And of all people, you are the person to say something about a computer creating something. You know what I mean?
That check.
Yeah, like, it's sad.
Well, the thing is, people have been
he a hoe.
People have been using AI before it was computerized. Drugs is an AI event essentially as well, because it stimulates a different part of your brain to create something that you wouldn't have thought of if you hadn't have taken that substance.
Yeah.
So essentially, drugs is an AI. It's just moved to
Through
the
a
web.
human.
Hey, you know
Hey,
what?
man,
He
you
actually
onto
owns
something
something
right
right there.
there.
Low
I see where you're going.
Yeah,
I mean,
it took
I'm
me a minute.
halfway
but
with you.
Yeah, I was like,
Hey,
he's
I'm
right.
serious.
He's low key.
I'm serious. Think
That
about
low-key makes
think
sense.
about
We be
artists
letting
whose
you
whole
know.
listen. Think
gonna
about
call it
artists
AI,
whose whole
but-
sound is drug related. The shit that Parliament Funkadelic was coming up with
Yeah, it
was
was.
drug related.
Yeah, it was.
The
Come on.
Doors
Sounds by the
shit
Beach
was
Boys.
drug related.
Drug
Come
related.
on.
You know what I'm saying? Who else? Pink Floyd shit was drug related.
Come on.
Yeah.
These are sounds that they wouldn't have been able to come up with without that substance.
Y'all saw the
That's
Slide
AI.
documentary. Y'all saw the Slide documentary. They was
That's AI.
Drugs was definitely going
They was on
Yes,
that.
That's
Yeah.
AI. That's just AI before it was computerized.
man, Terry, you might get the gold star for the day, brother. That's one of them ones right there.
Listen, man, this is just real shit. that's going on.
Listen, brother. That's where I thought
Yeah.
you was. I thought you was on your Umar.
Oh yeah, yeah.
His hand, he was looking for his hands to start.
It's the truth though, man.
Nah, man, it's like Lone said.
Dr.
Like Lone
Umar.
said.
That white girl has been influencing music for a lot longer than y'all were ready to think.
Listen,
Or the brown one,
come on,
the
man.
brown boy.
But no, I think to wrap this up, I think Lone is correct in terms of we're going the opposite direction. It's going to get worse before it circles back around, and I guess we'll just have to watch and see how it goes.
We're moving to a space where I just don't think we're going to have many albums to review. You know, the album might just wind up being something that is a luxury for those higher tier artists. Everyone else is just working off of singles.
Yeah.
But the
Or
only
three
push,
packs.
the only pushback I'll say, and then we can move on. Is that you can make an album and then push your album as singles.
Yeah.
That's what I think is that's the
That's game right
7 level
And that's
forehead,
not really that.
brain, whatever.
That's
Because
game right
back
there.
in the day, you know, when you think about what Motown did, by the time the Temptations had an album, it was just a collection of their 45s on one piece of vinyl.
Yeah.
They was
You know.
singles.
Yeah.
That's all you got to do.
Yeah.
Make an album and push every single thing as a single. Because that works now in today's climate. That's the one thing that you can do.
Facts.
Because
And
the
then-
people will pick the single if need be.
The
And
thing,
honestly,
no,
at
the
the
thing
end
is
of the
the thing is the single is just what it is. So like, you can make a single out of anything. You can make a single. Every single B-side record that we liked back in the day, those are singles now. You just have to target and market it in a specific way.
Yeah,
It's all about
and
everything.
At the end of the day, a good album with a whole bunch of great singles doesn't have to tell a story. That's still a good album. You know what I'm saying? Thriller is one of those joints.
Hard
I mean,
Knock
it's
Life.
It's
Full of
obviously
singles.
the greatest album of all time, being Thriller as far as sales wise is considered. It's just an album full of singles.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And that's to Terry's point. When you listen to that record, it's not about a theme. It's not about a concept. You just run it. And the album is fire. Think about Thriller. You just run it. That's you don't have to go too deep into that. All the records take care of themselves when you listen to Thriller. Right?
That's weird though. Saying
What's
that
weird?
it's not the album's not thing, but because it's not.
Yeah, it's not.
But the lead single sold the track. That sold the album, like, because that's
Billie
what his
Jean.
name. That was Billie Jean. No.
Billie Jean was the first single off that.
Thriller. I'm just saying.
The first single was "The Girl Is Mine."
I believe
what?
it.
Was
Yeah.
it? Never mind.
The doggone girl is mine.
The dog because it had Paul McCartney. on it. But yeah.
They were like, "Let's get this out of the way." That's not me. That's Michael. He was like, "Let's get it out of the way."
I'm just saying, Thriller being the record that titled the album. You know what I mean? So I
Title
would
track,
think that's what sold the album.
Yeah, it's not there yet, but I'm telling you, this is foreshadowing. Make albums, just drop everything as a single. That is the meta. Like, that's what everybody needs to do. Because what you can do there is you can target everybody that just wants the short pieces, right? But the people that also want the connected piece, they can get it if they want it.
Yeah. So you cover everybody by releasing it
I
that way.
think Chris Brown is mastering that right now.
How do you do that though?
How do
you
do it?
release the singles at first?
No.
And
No,
then
you
you
do
release the album?
You drop the
To
album
Lowe's
first.
point, you drop the project and then you
create a video for each single.
You do it in reverse as what we have been doing for the last since the inception, which was like lead up to something and then you give them something. Maybe drop a single before or do some sort of announcement before so people know. But then you give the album out and then you do your
See
promotional
which ones.
run for 9 months after that, sprinkling the songs in because you're going to get a different person every time and they're going to want to check more of your stuff. And if you drop a whole bunch of singles beforehand and you don't have your stuff yet, people are going to get bored of you.
and that gives
So
you
you're playing into the psychology of like, okay, they already have something fully here. Cool, you got them. Then the algorithm just works to grab whoever every single time.
Man, that's
there's
tough.
no such thing as a follower. There's no such thing as a subscriber anymore. So you can't play into that whole mode or that idea that you're going to grab people and then they're going to see your stuff unless you already have so much money that you can spend and target those people.
And the success is twofold because the project lives. It has legs, but it also has people, to Lone's point, goes back to your back catalog. You can get two things out of that by releasing it that way.
Man, you know how tough that is for like newer artists.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
For sure,
Like
for sure.
So that essentially what you're saying, there going to be a lot of new artists.
So they
because-
have to play into it until they can get to that position.
But how? Okay, so
Because
That's
as
why
a-
I brought up Chris Brown.
okay,
Chris Brown can drop an album every single year and have album songs off that last album that had 20 joints on it charting right now. That song's just now charting.
Residuals.
And he has a whole new album out.
yeah.
And he does it on every single one. So like when he started doing it, dropping a 30 album or 30 track
30
album,
tracks. Yeah.
it was to feed the algorithm. It's like he was figuring something out. It wasn't to drop in a whole complete album for you to fuck with as an album. It's more so, here's a bunch of songs. I'm going to go on tour this summer. I'm going to have some songs off of here, some songs off the stuff y'all really rock with, and then I'm going to do it again. While he's doing that, the other songs from the other albums are coming into play. You know what I'm saying? Like the what's the Robitussin joint that he had?
Under the Influence.
That's off Under the Influence.
Robitussin.
Well, he says that in it.
Oh,
but
okay.
anyway,
Okay. All right. I got you.
that song is popular now. You know what I'm saying? That song is popular now. It's been popular for like 2 years. He dropped it like 4 years ago, though.
How long was
So-
Sensational out before it hit? You know
Listen,
what I'm saying?
man,
Like,
Dope record.
Sensational was on 2 albums ago.
Yeah.
I
Dope
feel
record.
like.
That's a dope record.
But what he's doing, like I think we even talked about the number of songs he had on his joints. Is working in his favor because he's paying attention to the songs that he's actually putting on these albums. They're not just throwaway songs. They're songs that at some point in time is going to hit the algorithm or going to hit somebody's ear and they gonna rock with it.
but also, this is Chris Brown. You know,
That's
I
what I'm
don't
saying.
suggest. You know, you're talking about at this point. Chris Brown has been out here rocking for almost 20 years, and he
Doesn't
can.
he
He has
like
been
that.
rocking for
Yeah,
20.
and one of the things where it may not work for everybody, he can put out 30 songs. People will create their own. They will A&R Chris Brown's project and create
Make
a
a
playlist
whole album.
out of the 10 out of 30 songs they like, and then enough people do that, certain things will pick up in the algorithm, and then be 2 years later, and then be like, oh yeah, this song is something I can perform on stage, and then all of a sudden, a song from 2 albums ago is something that's on everybody's playlist. Like it's something that he can do.
That's the crazy thing, man, about when he was putting out them 30 album projects, man. I remember listening to him and I'm like, man, there's probably only like 5 of these that I don't like, man. Like, Chris is a bad boy, man.
I mean, now Jagged Edge tried to do the same thing.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it didn't work for them because the people who like Jagged Edge were probably into it, but it didn't have that same thing where people were catching on to the songs a year and a half, 2 years later. And, you know,
They
I
don't got
guarantee
that
you
machine behind them.
when they, that too, but, you know, I guarantee you when Jagged Edge, like I said, I had no idea they were here this weekend. Apparently, you know, it was
a good show.
But they performed the songs that we remember them for.
Yeah.
From, you know, when they initially came out and when they were in that major label system.
All right. So the moral of the story is we still care about albums, but if you got a collection of dope songs, put those out.
I'm going to rock with that too.
We ain't mad at you if you put it either way. If it worked for you, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.